Hi, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast, where we discuss health education and how to best teach health ed in the K 12 setting. Hi, and welcome to the School Health Educators Podcast. I'm your host, Lori Reichel. This episode is about getting mentally prepared to get back into the school year. And to help me out, I asked a colleague of mine who I've known for a couple of years now. I really love her energy. Her name is Meghan Vlad, and she was on the Puberty Prof podcast. And she seems to have such a positive, she does have a positive energy as well as a natural way to connect with students. So she is here today to help talk about getting prepared for this new school year. And Meghan, would you like to say hi to our audience?
Yeah, hi. Thank you again for having me. I'm sure some of you may have heard our episodes on Puberty Prof, but I'm excited to be back and talk about this topic because it's one we really all have to start thinking about soon.
Yes. We're recording right towards the end of July. This episode's being released in August. So I think I'm beginning to feel a little bit of that. Okay, I'm going to start seeing students again, and I'm going to have more meetings. Some of us might have taught in the summer or done other work, like there's meetings throughout the summer. Yet the fall seems to start it a little bit more. Before I continue, Meghan, do you want to just tell us a little bit about who you are and your background?
Sure. So I am going into my 10th year of teaching in New York State. And 10th
Yay!
year, yeah, teaching overall. I am a middle school health educator, primarily teaching grades 6 and 7. I am an adjunct professor at Lehman College with their graduate program for health education. It's something I'm loving being a part of. I coach cheerleading at the college level, at the high school level. I coach softball. And usually throw way too much on my plate, but it's all things that I'm passionate about. So, I'm always excited to kind of get back into the school year. And so this episode feels like a nice transition and it's helping me kind of mentally get there. But that's just kind of me in a nutshell.
Thank you. And thanks again for being here today. As you know, we as educators start thinking about another academic year and we start prepping in our brains. Some educators even start feeling distressed. Is this why you wanted to talk about this topic today?
I think, yes, I feel the distress myself. And I think it's that anticipation of what's to come in the year ahead. It's reflecting back on our previous years. And then we get this kind of breath of fresh air when we step into the summer. I know every single break I am always ready for, whether that's summer, whether that's a 3-day weekend. I feel like they always come at just the right time where we need to like kind of come up for air. And summer feels like this time that we can really recharge, and it always ends too soon. So when that distress starts coming on, we feel that anticipation, we feel that anxiety, and that transition piece back in. And I think about our students too, where this big change happens, whatever it might be, and navigating that transition can be difficult. And so there's a few things that I've put in place for myself, not only in the summer, but then in the school year that I'm excited to kind of share with other educators about that may be something they already do, but might be helpful for them as well.
Okay. Do you mind sharing some of these things? And I guess these are the recommendations you have for the podcast episode?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, great.
So looking at just stress management and burnout. So as you're in the summer is do what you want to do in the summer. And I know that you've had episodes that have kind of touched on this and, pack the days filled with fun, but also days that, as I like to call it, just rotting, where I may not leave the couch or I'm not getting out of my pajamas. I'm just taking a load off. And I'm not dealing with my responsibilities of the ones that I can obviously get away with, like the dish can sit there for another hour. I can be a moldy human and rot away for the morning or whatever length of time I need. But really making sure that I am just listening to my own body, whether that's mentally or physically, and trying to give it what it needs. And I think a lot of times in the summer, I do those kind of days where I'm just relaxing. I feel like we're so overstimulated during the school year that we finally have this time to just decompress, and that's all we want to do. So really taking those summer days, but seeing also what ways you can incorporate that into your school year. So if there is something coming up, like I know that if I have a doctor's appointment that I can't schedule for any other time. It has to be during the school day. And there's not wiggle room around that. If I take a half day, I will still get up early and I'll go either for a walk or I'll go get breakfast and go to a coffee shop and then go to my doctor's appointment. Or if it's, a 9 o'clock doctor's appointment and I don't need to be back until my building at 10:30, maybe I'm stopping at a coffee shop on my way into work and just finding that like little moment of peace that I can do something nice for myself that just gives me that separation between the go, go, go of work. So that's one kind of example.
So it aligns to what we teach in the classroom about being mindful, especially when we have a time to ourselves, instead of having that to-do list and checking it off. It's being present, in which for me, sometimes to physically be away from even my house and sitting at a place, like it might be watching a TV show or something, or just looking at the forest, looking at water like on a lake. It does something that within a period of time, I'm ready to focus again back on work and I'm stronger. Do you get that too?
Yeah, it's that little moment, that like kind of meta moment that you can be mindful, you can relax, and then bring it back. And that's something I also incorporate into my classroom setting. So fortunate to have, we have technology in our health classrooms. You probably have a smart board. I have a smart board. And I have shifted to doing videos that have more, I don't know if it's animated, but it'll kind of go through like a babbling brook or you're underwater looking at a coral reef. And I find that these kind of bring my students back in.
Mm-hmm.
I typically play music that doesn't have lyrics because then it turns into a sing along. And we have days that we can have a sing along, but on the
Mm-hmm.
days that we just need to be kind of focused in on our group work or our independent work or our one-on-one time with, me or someone else, that kind of helps keep that calm and that peace. And if they need to take a moment to just look up and like refocus and then come back to the work, they tend to come back stronger and be less distracted.
So I need to ask, do you have the Calm app and do you have that up on your screen at any time for your lessons?
I do have the Calm app. I did not
Okay.
know I could connect that to my screen. So this is a game changer because I typically
Uh-huh.
onto YouTube and I'm searching up, something that's whatever. At Christmas time, we've done Hogwarts, where they do like
Ah,
a Winter Wonderland Hogwarts, and it's going through Hogsmeade, and they love that. But the Calm app, I didn't know I could connect that to my computer screen.
yeah. And I think what I'm going to do is really quickly, I'm just going to go to share my screen for those people that are able to watch this on the YouTube channel. And because I already talked about this on a previous episode, but I actually have this playing when I do writing, and there's music on here, very soft. It might be guitar, it might be piano, but it's all about getting centered. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's excellent.
I love that. Okay. Yeah, that is now, I did not even realize that it had an online platform that lived
Yeah.
outside of my phone.
Yeah.
That's
No,
awesome.
that's
That's
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to
Oh, you're
totally,
welcome.
I've been using another platform. I can't think of what it's called right now, but I think it might be called Screen Me or
Okay.
Screenly. But you can put up like little widgets and timers, and things that kind of just pull the kids back in. It has a noise level meter, that
Oh, okay,
it
neat.
gets too loud, it starts to ring a bell. But
Mm-hmm.
I've also learned that that turns into a competition of like, hey, can we get it to ring? And how many times can but for some classes that works. But yeah,
Gotcha.
no, it's definitely something that I find is helpful, yes, in my personal life, and then also when I'm professionally doing things on my own or even in my classroom. Another thing that I have been doing that allows me to feel like I have that me time, and in my introduction, I'm super busy. I've started listening to audiobooks. And so I love reading, and I was finding that I would get into bed and I would attempt to read either in the morning or at night, and I would fall asleep. So it was not productive to me, and I felt guilty sitting down and reading my book. Like there were so many other things that I could and should be doing that I wasn't. And so something that I've started to do is listening to audiobooks. And so in my 30-minute commute into work, I listen to my book. On my way home, I listen to my book. If I'm cooking dinner, I'm listening to my book. So that kind of allows me to get that me time. It allows me to disconnect, and it gives me something to focus on while I'm driving, that isn't just letting my mind kind of spiral with those to-do lists that I have for the day. And I've started to now shift those to-do lists instead of trying to mentally do it and then write it down. I give myself the grace of I'm just listening to my book and I'm
Mm.
enjoying this moment, and it makes my commute so much better. And then when I get into work, the first thing that I do is I look at my to-do list from the day or week prior, and I give myself a new one prioritizing, okay, this has to get done today, whether that's sending an email or trying out a new lesson idea and kind of like toying around with what that might look like. But I make that to-do list so that I can stay kind of focused, and it feels so good to just cross that off once it's done. So that's another kind of tip or trick that can get me ready. It's something I'm actually starting to do for the school year. So something unfortunate that happened, I guess kind of unfortunate, but I had to clear out my entire classroom. They were doing abatement, and so everything had to leave. And there was a lot of stuff that we acquire as
Mm-hmm.
educators. And I feel like I have the most random tchotchkes and items that I use with my students because our content is just so diverse that there's a million different ways that we can teach it. And so I was pulling out pool noodles and dice and clickers and all of these different materials and getting that all out. And so now I'm making myself a list of when I get back to school, I need to prioritize in these ways on top of those, PD meetings that we're all going to have to sit through, the GCN trainings, all those other kind of tasks that we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But carving out that time that is, let's get this piece done.
Yeah.
So starting that in the summer, I feel like is helpful so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming when the school year comes back around, which kind of leads into boundaries. Boundaries is another really big thing that I try to set for myself. And that's, I would say, newer when it came to work. And that is because I'm recently tenured. So I just finished my first year being fully tenured. And what a nice feeling that is.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I started to do was I'm logging out of email. So in the summer, I'm not logged into my school email. I'm not checking it. There's no need for it. Anything that needs my attention that quickly, they have my phone number. They could reach out to me. But the reality is, there's nothing that really needs my attention that drastically and quickly when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
work, which is nice to be able to disassociate from that. And then those boundaries I put into place in the summer, I'm sorry, on the weekends as well. So I'm not responding to emails after 3 p.m. on a Friday. I will check it when I am back in on Monday morning, and I will get back to you in a timely manner, but I'm not going to be checking it over the weekend because that boundary, that work-life boundary is in place. And so really looking at when I am giving myself time to work in the summer to benefit my future self, right?
Mm-hmm.
To help myself get on track when it comes time to go back to school, I'm still setting those boundaries. I'm only going to work on this task or this project for an hour. Or
Yeah.
if I'm really feeling good about it, I'm just going to run with it. And even if I do it for a few extra hours, that's great. But allowing myself to have those boundaries so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming, that's another piece that kind of really gets me in gear for the school year and just kind of planning through things and being ready to set that up. And I think that planning piece, and there's all different types of people and planners. You can have type A, type B, type C. And we're not all type A, and that's okay. But finding what works for you with scheduling that and what can you do to make your future life so much easier.
Very good. Very good. So we have, I wrote down a couple of things on my list here. We have using um, your days off as days off, or your time off, even a half a day when possible. Figuring out ways to focus, in which audiobooks is something that you listen to for that. Planning purposefully, and setting boundaries.
Yes. Those are big ones for me.
Yeah.
Something I also started to do, and this just kind of popped into my brain here. I take my lunch. I physically leave my classroom when I eat lunch. Unless I really need to get something done, I try to give myself the time to either go out for a walk on our track and then eat my lunch, whether that's with a
Hmm.
colleague. Sometimes I'll go to the faculty room. Sometimes I find that can be a little bit overstimulating, and it
Hmm.
seems like a dumping ground. And it's very nice to have a place where you can release all of that, but sometimes in the middle of work is not what's best for me to kind of hear it. And so I'd rather just kind of like put in headphones. So if I go in there, I'm putting in headphones and whether I'm working or not working, but I really try to just give myself at least a solid 20 minutes where I'm not and I'm just eating, catching up with colleagues on like their personal lives because we are all people doing things, amazing things, and kind of networking and sharing that way because I think a lot of times we get lost behind that educator hat and there's so many other hats that we wear. So yeah, taking that lunchtime. It's about finding those times for you that kind of give you that rest and refocus.
I'm nodding my head a lot because a couple of episodes, well, maybe about 4 or 5 episodes ago, I spoke with Kathleen Vogt, Vogt. I
Mhm.
mispronounced her last name. And the whole episode was about how what we teach in health education class, we actually can practice in our own lives. And stronger educators do that. So we're even better at teaching it. And that's what it seems like you're doing, Megan. Would you agree with me?
I would agree with it. I think sometimes I don't do it well. But I feel like I also let my kids see that messy side of didn't happen today. It's
Hmm.
not happening now, or like having that pivot moment, and leaning into the real. Because I think when we're vulnerable with them, they see us for us, but it also makes our messaging that much more important and
Hmm.
really will stick with them. And so I think letting them kind of see all of those phases are important, and I think that's a big piece of it. So I think practicing what we preach, yes, but also acknowledging and not beating ourselves up when that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Being healthy isn't easy.
No, it's a lot of work. A lot of work.
Yep, it's changing some old habits. Sometimes it's changing our thinking. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, but it certainly is worth it. And we don't have to be perfect, yet doing the best we can with the tools we've been provided. Now, do you have any other recommendations for our audience today?
I would say whatever opportunities you can get your schools to cover. I find that attending conferences are a huge way to connect with other like-minded educators, learn new ideas, and I find that the conferences are also come just at the right time. So New York State AFERD, the end of November, it's coming, right up alongside Thanksgiving break, but it's nice to kind of get those ideas in mid-school year, and then be able to put them into practice. There's always something I walk away with where I'm like, that was a great idea, and I cannot wait to use that or my
Mhm.
wheels get turning on something else that maybe it wouldn't work in my classroom, but this is how I can change it that it would. And so I feel like networking there, I'm a part of Health Teacher Central on Facebook, which is also just loaded up with great ideas. Teacher Pay Teacher is also fantastic. And sometimes I just like peruse through and I may not buy something, but it sparks another idea of like, oh, this could be cool for my classroom, or I could modify something like this, or I will just buy something and use it and it's fantastic. So I think really leaning into our network of health educators,
Mhm.
is important, right? Listening to podcasts, reading books, finding, different TV shows or documentaries that we can then pull into what we're doing, but also, whether that helps us personally, professionally, just get to do what you need to do in that way.
Mhm. And I hopefully will see you at the New York State Conference if we're both going this year.
I am, so you will.
And I know that we have ASHA, which is the American Society for Health, uh, Health. Association. Sorry if I'm not saying that correctly. They have a conference usually in October, and then there's the National Health and Physical Education Literacy Conference that I believe is in March of 2026. And then there's Shape America that's in April of 2026. And I think Sophie too at the end of April. So there's a lot of great organizations to go to conferences for, whether it be in the state or national. And then, as Megan said, all these online resources, as long as they're reliable and they're authentic. Make sure you use your skill set for national standard number 3, accessing reliable resources. So Megan, thank you so much for being here today. And would you like to say anything else to our listeners as well as say goodbye? Thanks for listening.
Do something that is going to make your life easier, whatever that is, figure it out, test it out now in the summer, and get back to us. Leave comments, let us know what works, because then we can just continue to build on that and sharing those helpful tips and tools with others so that we feel ready and good to go through the school year. But thank you again for having me. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you and, share a little bit of what works for me with, the listeners.
Thank you again, Megan. And thank you to our listeners. As Megan said, it is neat to connect. We haven't spoken in a while, and this is why connecting through recording a podcast. If you want to be on a podcast, reach out to me at schoolhealtheducators@gmail.com. But to go to a conference too, to connect, because it kind of like just revs you up, gets you excited about the possibility for our field of school health education. So thank you for listening. Megan, thank you for being here. And please continue to listen, follow this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Also, check out the schoolhealtheducators.org website. There are some resources on there for even starting a new school year. And last but never least, thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you. Children and youth need you. They need us. Continue doing the diligent work of providing kids the best tools they can have to be happy and healthy throughout their lives. So thanks again for listening in. Have a great day.